Raw Truth Stories of Female Infidelity may contain explicit and questionable content. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual podcaster Rebecca Adams and are not based on the advice of a licensed therapist, psychologist, or psychiatrist. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Human lives follow many paths, presenting twists and turns and choices never planned, never expected. Temptation, anger, depression, and loneliness all can lead a person to a mistake they can't take back. Facing judgment and isolation, a person can feel very alone. These are the voices of women who have chosen to cheat on their spouses or partners. Hear their stories. This is Raw Truth. Stories of Female Infidelity. Hello everybody, this is Rebecca. And as you know, I am currently on a winter break. But while I'm away, I wanted to be able to help others in the podcast industry and share their show with my listeners. So please take a listen, and if you are interested in subscribing to their show, please check the episode notes. All the details will be there for you to go ahead and subscribe to them. If you just came across the podcast Raw Truth Stories of Female Infidelity and you would like to listen to those stories, all you have to do is back up on the episode list to prior to December of 2021. The podcast will return on Sunday, February 6th or Friday, February 4th if you're a Patreon subscriber. And if you are interested in bonus episodes and are interested in subscribing as a Patreon, details on how to proceed will be at the end of this episode. And thank you for being here.
Someone had to say it.
Welcome back, everybody. My good friend Scott Jacobson, Jay, Scotty, you go by many different names. So welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back. And I just found the video again. So I had lost it for a brief moment. But it's always a pleasure being with you and sharing this wonderful time.
Well, it's so funny because I think we're both so technologically inept, which I'm a little bit better than you. I have to say I'm a little bit better than you. But
Yes,
it was so funny because we're talking and you're like, wait, where'd you go? That's totally my life. Like that is totally what happens on a daily basis. Today works, tomorrow it doesn't. Like what the fuck did I do from one day to the next, you know?
I don't know. That's why I live that one day at a time, because today may or may not work, and then we start all over tomorrow.
Right, exactly. So we didn't really have one topic today to discuss. I don't know what we're talking about. We always start with one and end up with God knows what, right? So, so what are we talking about today?
That's a good question. We've been texting back and forth and we didn't come up with a topic. The first thing I did want to say, though, is after our last podcast with the escort, I thought of so many questions I wanted to ask her that I didn't.
Afterwards. That's right. I did too. And I actually had people texting me. They're like, didn't you ask her this? Why didn't you ask her that? So we're going to have her back on. But what were questions that were popping into your mind?
Well, the first one that came to my mind is I wanted to know, did any of her clients ask for some type of kinky sex that was just out of the question? Like what was the most outrageous request she had, and did she fulfill the request or did she say no? Right.
The strangest, kinkiest things. That's a good question. So we'll have to have her back on and ask. And, you know, it was really interesting that she was so open about it. I didn't think that she was going to be so open and understanding with some of the dumb questions that I know I had, because that's all new to me. But I love that she was so real and honest and open about it and willing to talk about it.
Yeah, she really was, and she was funny, and
Yeah.
like you said, truthful and honest. She didn't hold back. Um, the other thing I wanted to ask her, and this is going to sound strange, I wanted to ask her if she kisses her clients, because every escort I've ever had, they would, the one rule was no kissing. They might let me fuck them in the ass, but they wouldn't let me kiss them. It was weird.
Well, I think that's a misconception. I really think that's, first of all, I think it's the type of escort services that you were using and the type of escorts. But I think that was like an old thing. I don't know if that was still true. I mean, I remember in the Pretty Woman movie, it was the same thing. She was like, anything but kissing. Don't kiss me on the mouth. I don't know if that's still true, but that's a good question to ask. Maybe it is. I don't see why that would be off limits. Although I don't know. Not a big fan of kissing. I've never been a big fan of kissing.
Oh, really?
I don't know why. It's not, I think maybe because I know what it is, or part of it is, I know I'm a big hypochondriac. I don't like people being too close to me. I think that's a huge reason why I like this pandemic, is people have to stay away from me.
Right.
Further away they stay away from me, the better. I want that to continue. I actually tweeted that a while ago, like, can we just keep the 6 foot social distance going, because I don't like people invading my space. I don't like people touching my hair, my face, especially strangers, right? But even those I'm close with, I don't know, maybe it's just like all that strange saliva, somebody else's DNA in my mouth. It's like, ew, I don't know where your mouth has been. I don't know where your tongue's been. I don't know how clean your mouth is.
You should know where your husband's mouth and tongue have been. I mean, hopefully. But it's funny you mentioned this, because my last girlfriend was exactly like you. She didn't like to kiss. And I really, this isn't going to sound so manly, but I really like kissing. I mean, it really turns me on.
I think a lot of men do. I don't think it's unmanly not to. I think most normal people.
Right. Yeah. So you and my ex-girlfriend. So when my ex-girlfriend and I were having sex, I wanted to kiss like you see in the movies and stuff, passionate.
Crazy. And yeah.
Right. And she would give me a little peck on the lips, and then we'd do whatever we did, and that was it.
And that was it.
Yeah. And it's not very intimate.
That's kind of me. I don't know. I've never really, I mean, maybe in the moment here and there, but for the most part, I'm like, I don't know. I'm really big about hygiene too, and mouth hygiene. And I think because of where we came from, our dental, I wrote about it in my book, that our dental and medical system was so messed up, and it took us years to fix our teeth, even though, I was 13 years old. So it was, how bad could it have gotten, right? Apparently it was pretty bad. I mean, I had to have like root canals and stuff, and thank God, knock on wood, I'm like spitting over my left shoulder here. Knock on wood, things are fine. But I think in my head, that's what I think about. I don't know how well they brush their teeth or floss or what's going on in their mouth. And, I still to this day, I cannot find my vaccine form that everybody has to have in order to start school and, live in the society. So I have no idea what vaccines I got and what I didn't get. And I'm definitely afraid of mono, which is the kissing disease, right? I know it's only really like teenagers and young people get, but I'm absolutely terrified of getting mono. So stupid.
So I have to ask you this question, and you don't have to answer, but do you let your husband go down on you?
Yes, I'm not a big fan of that either.
Because talk about hygiene. I mean, if you don't know where the mouth and the tongue have been, and then you let him down into your private areas,
I see what you're saying. For some reason, that doesn't scare me as much as my mouth. I don't know why. And,
either, but
I have no problem with oral. I have no problem with going down. I I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just about my mouth. I don't even like when my dentist sticks his whole hand in my mouth. And
Well,
all the
no,
while,
I don't like that either. That's some stranger with his, some latex gloves on,
right?
ramming his hand in your throat. That's not a lot of fun.
I know.
But you know what? Because I have met women like you who don't like kissing. And again, I think
Oral.
part of it is right, or oral, and part of it is a germaphobe kind of thing. But I think also part of it is the intimacy factor. I mean, my last girlfriend, she has some trauma in her life and whatever, and we won't get into that. But I think the kissing is just too intimate for her.
Hmm.
Where the other acts, okay, yeah, they're sex acts and it's for pleasure or whatever, but kissing and French kissing with the tongue, I mean, that's,
Who
pretty.
calls it French kissing anymore? Do people really still call it that?
I don't know. You're bringing up mono, which I haven't heard since 1985. So, yeah, French. I don't know. When I stick my tongue down your throat, what do we call that today?
I don't know what. I guess my 16-year-old and you are still calling it French kissing, but
Well, I got someone in my corner.
but you know what? I think yeah, you do have this on your corner. Like it's the screen's all white. So funny. You're very godly like now. You got the halo around you. You're like very Jesus. Oh my God.
Right. I'm right near the window and the sun came out, so I'm gonna.
That's so funny.
Close
But there's no, it's fine. But I think there's something to that. You're probably right. There's some weird I don't know that I've always hated kissing and didn't like kissing. Maybe it's just over the years. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like, okay, let's just get to it. Let's just get to the point. Let's just skip all this bullshit and foreplay and whatever. I don't know. I mean, who knows? But it's interesting. It would be interesting to have a sex therapist on and to ask them these questions. What does it mean when people don't like kissing, but yet they will do everything else sexually, right? And so maybe we can definitely have a sex therapist on and ask all these questions. I'd be interested to know if there's a reason.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Because look, there's a lot of science that goes behind sex.
Yeah.
And all the different things people are willing to do and the different erotic areas and how it affects our brain chemistry and stuff. And yeah, if we got an expert on who really could answer these questions,
that would be
very interesting.
Right, exactly. But yeah, so that was an interesting one. And then I did just interview a sex coach, which I haven't posted it yet, but that was also interesting because I've been listening to a lot of these podcasts. There's one in particular that I keep mentioning and I keep talking about, and I feel like she should be talking about this podcast because of how much I'm talking about her podcast.
That's only fair.
Right? But she's got a lot more viewers than we do, the 5 listeners or whoever they are. But it's called Sex with Emily. And she is, I want to say she is a doctor. She's a therapist, a sex therapist. And she had on this woman who's big feminist, and she's all about the female pleasure and everything, which is awesome and great, and I'm all for it. But I'm very frustrated because she talked about the fact that women have a prostate, which, for years there was this myth that women don't have prostates, only men have prostates. So she's like, no, women have prostates. They're not in the same place as the men's prostates, but
I had no idea.
Me neither. So I'm on the quest. As I texted you earlier, you're like, I'm going to go get coffee and then we'll meet and do the podcast. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go find my prostate and then we'll meet.
I read that text and I didn't get, I thought you misspelled a word. I thought you were looking for something else for our podcast. And I saw the word prostate. And it's like, how the fuck is Julia looking for her prostate? You don't even have one. But now you're telling me you have one?
So that is why I'm so confused, because she goes, and this is a really interesting episode. It's like 428 or something. But it's Sex with Emily with this Dr. Deborah I have to find it. But and she basically says that Sundahl, Sundahl. And I think everybody should listen to it. It was so educational, and I thought I knew a lot of things. Apparently, it's inside the vaginal wall, and you have to find it. It's like right kind of like at the roof of the, when you first insert, like if you insert a finger, you'd like feel it up there, okay?
Right.
So yeah, I've spent the last couple of days looking for it. I don't think I have it because I can't find it. I actually sent her an email through her website, and I said, we need to talk because I can't find mine.
Now, is that what, and I'm going to go old school again, is that what people used to call the G spot?
Yes. So apparently, did you know that the G spot, it stands for goddess spot?
All I know is it doesn't exist because I've never found it on any fucking woman I've been with. So talk about a goddess myth. There is no G spot. I don't know about the prostate, but yeah. I've never found a G spot in my life.
Okay, so it does exist. It is there. You clearly haven't found it. And that's what, I talked with the sex coach about, is that you need to communicate with your partner, because a lot of times the women are just like, yeah, it's about the man, it's about his pleasure. Okay, let's just get this over with. And they're either too embarrassed to actually tell you what they like, what feels good, or they don't want to, or, whatever other stupid reason. So it is there. And that's really where the pleasure comes from, is what she's talking about, is that prostate, which is internal, but it starts from the top, from the outside, and it goes all the way in. So it's hard to explain. It's like I have to draw a diagram to explain it.
See, I've always thought, and I don't know where I heard this, but I always thought or heard that the G spot was at the top, like you said, as you enter the vagina with a finger or something, you go to the top of it, and there's a G spot there. Trust me, I've tried this thousands of times, and unless I'm pressing the wrong button, there's only so much room on the top there. I don't see how I miss it every single time.
So I almost want to draw a diagram for you, okay? But there's your G spots, or there's 32 nerve endings just on the outer part of the clitoris. 32 different areas where it feels good and it brings pleasure and you can bring it to orgasm. And then on the inside, there's even more. So it's not just one little spot, it's like all over. So if
that makes me even feel worse that I'm missing it if it's all over.
You should, because the thing is, if she doesn't know what feels good for her, she doesn't know her own body, how are you going to find it? So I think that's the whole point of this woman who's talking about get to know your body and get to know what feels good for you before you can be with a partner and explain to the partner what feels good,
Right. No, that makes sense. But I'll tell you, in all honesty, and this being serious, I have never heard of a woman who had prostate cancer. Now, I know plenty of men who battle prostate cancer. Not to say that there are, there could be women out there and I wouldn't know about it. But since today's the first day I've ever heard that you guys have prostates, that would be another issue.
Right. Yeah. No, I've never heard of it either, but I wonder if there is. And you know what? Keep talking. I'm actually going to Google this while we're talking, because this is a really interesting
when men turn about 40,
yeah,
okay, when they go for their yearly physical or whatever, their doctor checks their prostate.
Right.
And he's checking to see if it's enlarged, and they do blood work to get a PSA level, and they're checking for prostate cancer. My dad had prostate cancer.
Really?
Yeah, and he actually had to have his prostate removed. That's how bad it was. But, I would ask you as a woman, I mean, have you ever gone to a physical where they say we're going to check your prostate?
No, I don't think so, unless when they're checking, because supposedly it's inside the vagina. When they're checking that whole area, they're checking for that too. So maybe that's, and they're looking for, inflammation, and you do have pap smears every year, which, although I'm like way overdue for mine. That's a whole other PSA. Go get your pap smears even during the pandemic, and mammograms, which is awful. That's a whole other thing, the whole mammogram machine. It had to have been developed by a man. No woman would ever develop a machine that literally squeezes your boob to the point that it's so flat and they can see everything. No, it had to have been a man. And I refuse
it had to be. And I don't know where I've seen that, probably in a movie or something, but I have seen a mammogram machine in action, and I do feel bad for you guys. I mean, that thing, it just smashes the breast into a pancake.
It's horrible. And it depends on who you get, what kind of technician you get. Obviously, it's usually women, but if they're nice or having a bad day or just total bitch. But the last one I walked out of there crying, because she was just basically saying, just shut up and do it. Just shut up and take it. I did it. You can do it. We all can do it. I'm like, well, maybe I'm a little more sensitive than you. Or maybe you're squeezing them a little bit too much unnecessarily. It was awful. And I always beg my doctor to let me do the ultrasound, which they can do, but it costs more, so they won't do it. And they have some bullshit excuse why they don't do it. Oh, we don't see it as much. And actually, it's better. So now I end up fighting with insurance all the time because I just want to do the ultrasound.
I don't blame you.
It's bullshit.
That procedure sounds horrible, and
it's not fun. It's but so I just looked it up, and apparently it says that like you said, cancer of the female prostate is rare. It does happen, but it's rare. It's 0.003% of all cancers are in that prostate, genital, urinary tract. So it can happen, but you're right. I've never heard of it.
Well, that's a very, very low percentage. Which,
but
women is a good thing.
Right. So speaking of your dad, though, did you ask him any more questions about the whole mob connection? Because I got a lot of questions about that. I get emails and texts and whatever. I think there was.
Well, I talked to him a little bit about it, and it's similar to that podcast that we got to this subject. You and I were talking about how, especially probably in the Jewish culture, my parents' generation, and then one generation above them, my grandparents' generation, everything was kept hidden. Everything that went on within the household, stayed in the household. And I told you the last time we talked about this that, my grandmother was the last living of that generation till she was 102. And I used to ask her questions, and I would get very vague answers. She was never specific. What I do know is, so my grandfather, my dad's father, he had a brother and a sister, and the sister got married. So my grandfather, his brother, his sister's husband, the men were part of this Canton group that was very similar to a mob or a mafia. Wow. I think I told you they would go somewhere, and I don't remember where, some room or somebody's house, to quote play cards. And while they were playing cards, they would come up with these different plans. And I believe, I'm pretty sure that they had, Canton's a small town, so they were in the pocket of the mayor and the police. They would pay these people to sort of look the other way for whatever operations they were doing. Wow. And I wish I had more specifics for you.
Yeah, I want to know, like, specifics. What did they do? Who did they kill off or whatever. I definitely want to know the specific, not that
Right.
he
I
would
mean,
tell
you
you.
know, it's like any mob. Nobody really talks because if you talk, you get whacked. And now that generation is all gone, so I don't have anybody in that generation to talk to. And you know,
Right.
my dad was a kid, and you know, how much did he know or not know? Um, you know, again, I think when my grandmother passed away, and this goes back to like 2013, I think all those secrets went with her. She was the last resort I had, and it's a shame. But the funny thing about Canton, it was a small town, but it had a high percentage of Jews living there for some reason. Can't tell you why. I mean, we're talking a town that had maybe 2 high schools, 3 high schools, you know, a couple elementary schools. I mean, it might have had 30,000 people. I don't know. I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
But a big percentage of it were Jewish people. They had 2 big temples there. And I think the Jews, for the most part, ran the city. They got people elected to office who they wanted elected to office. And whatever. Here's the funny thing. My grandfather and his sister's husband
Mm-hmm.
were both in the furniture business. Okay. They sold furniture retail.
Okay.
To me, number one, that's a little odd that they both would be doing that in the city of Canton. They both had their own stores. I think
It's not that big of a city, right? Like, do you need 2 furniture stores?
no, you don't.
Right.
Right? It's a small town. So I think that whole furniture thing was a front for something else.
Right.
Maybe they were laundering money through it, you know, and they would pretend like they sold furniture. Okay, I sold this couch and blah blah blah, but the money was coming from other activities. You know, it would have been nice to get the specific stories, but I'm afraid nobody's talking.
Well, I wish somebody interviewed her. That's why I plan to do that with my parents. And I've interviewed them a lot, especially for my book. But I think actually have it on audio, you know, recorded, having these stories. That would have been amazing if someone actually interviewed her about all of her life and those stories and everything that went on. And I wish, well, maybe your dad knows more than he wants to share too. You know?
Right.
If
That's
he has,
what I'm guessing. So
right.
I'll keep prying to see if I can get anything else out of him or see if he slips up. Because yeah, it is intriguing. That's for
Yeah.
sure. And,
I love that it's funny how, you know, people say Jews run the world. No, they don't really run the world, but they run Canton.
yes, they run Canton, Ohio.
Tiny little town. What is the
Right.
population? It's small, right?
Yeah,
What is-
again, I'm guessing it's 30,000. I
Wow.
might be off a little bit, but
Yeah.
like I said, when my parents both grew up there, and that's where they met in junior high or whatever. There was, I think, 3 high schools in the whole city,
Wow.
and they went to one, and that's where they met, and then there were a couple others, and then the one they went to actually shut down, so then they were down to 2. And as far as I know right now, there's one big high school that still exists in Canton, but
Hmm.
you know, I haven't been back there in a while. But for those listeners out there who don't know what Canton, Ohio is or where it is, its claim to fame is it has the Pro Football Hall of Fame is in Canton, Ohio.
Oh, that's right. It does. I think we took the boys there one of the times we went there.
Yeah, you probably did.
And yeah, but you know, it's so funny because someone asked me, they were listening to one of the podcasts we did a long time ago about your life and, you know, addiction and everything. And they were asking, what is how do we meet and how do we know each other? And we never really talked about it. But and it's funny, I don't think we met at Larry's wedding. Not that Larry would ever be listening to this podcast, but
Right.
we actually really met at a wedding of a mutual friend of yours and my husband's, and like all of you guys that grew up together. And I think wasn't it in Chicago, somewhere outside of Chicago, that he got married?
Yeah, I think it was actually in Milwaukee.
Oh, yeah,
I
Milwaukee,
think,
Chicago.
I
I don't know.
think
You know, I'm so bad with geography in American states.
well, I think he was
No,
in
it was
Chicago.
Chicago.
Was it
I
Chicago?
was at some McDonald's house,
Well, because
so
I know his bachelor party, which was the same weekend because we all went in town,
yeah.
was in Milwaukee because we went to a Milwaukee Brewers baseball game.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I can't remember. That was, at least what, how many years? That was 17 years ago, 18 years ago. Anyway, it was a
Oh,
long time ago because it was before I had my second, and he's 16 now. So, that was longer than that. But and the funny thing is, we actually thought about naming the podcast. Remember, we met at Larry's
we
wedding.
met at Larry's wedding. Yeah, I still love that name.
Nobody would really even understand. Of course,
No, they
except for
wouldn't
Larry.
get that. But I remember when I got to know you, quote, quote, for the first time, for some reason, one night of that wedding weekend, I guess there was nothing planned
Mhm.
because you and Scott and myself and another friend of ours named Harry Klausner,
Do we
we
want to
all,
say his last name? I mean, maybe he doesn't want to
oh,
be
well, trust me,
five
I don't
listeners.
know where he is either. He's not listening. But we all went to dinner together. It was just
Right.
the four of us. You
I
remember that?
remember. I do. It was at some deli, wasn't it? Some Jewish deli or some
No, I
steakhouse.
thought it was a steakhouse.
That's
Yeah,
right.
like
You're
a
right.
Morton steakhouse or something.
You're right. You're right. And I think all of you people got just a chunk of steak, and that was it. It was like this giant thing of steak and nothing else. There was no vegetables, salad, mashed potatoes, just steak. And I remember thinking, what the fuck is this? Like, you're just gonna eat the steak? That's it? You're like, yep, that's it.
Yeah, because everything at a place like that, everything's a la carte. And the fucking steak costs back then like $50. And
Right.
then you have to pay like $15 if you want broccoli or whatever. It's like, all right, give me a slab of meat. And at the time I was drinking, so give me my vodka or whatever, and I'm
You're
good.
good. Yeah. But that's not what my Scott said. He's like, yeah, Cleveland people, Midwest people, nobody eats salad. Nobody eats, anything healthy, just meat and potatoes. I'm like, well, they didn't even get the freaking potatoes. He's like, yeah, it's all about the meat and it's all about, that protein. Like, okay.
Right, that
Never seen,
Midwest meat and potatoes, like you said, that's
definitely not how we eat in California and on just the West Coast, really. I mean, it's all about, with every meal, we got a vegetable, we got a fruit. So that was definitely like going back to Russia, because that's how we ate back home. That's how we ate in Russia. Meat and potatoes, meat and potatoes, meat and potatoes.
right.
Sometimes just the potatoes,
Yeah, when money was tight, potatoes are inexpensive.
Well, it wasn't even when the money was tight. It was when they didn't have any meat or chicken or fish in the grocery stores, because really that's all it was during communism. It's whatever they put out on the shelves is what you eat in that night. So,
you didn't have much of a choice, that's for sure.
no, we didn't. But, I just found out not long ago that apparently in Israel, in some northern part of Israel, there's such a huge Russian population in Israel in general, that there's a festival every year that they put on. And it's literally it's called like a potato festival, because there's so many Russians and this is all we eat is really potatoes and meat. It's the potatoes in Russian is kartoshka. So the festival is called something like Kartoshka Festival, because it's all Russians. I thought it was hysterical. I thought it was so funny. Even in Israel, our cuisine, our culture has like taken over.
Right, they're still eating potatoes. Sounds like a festival that would take place in Idaho.
Exactly, right? Or like in Wisconsin or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Midwest somewhere. I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah.
So I want to tell you a brief story since you brought up where we met at Larry's wedding.
Potatoes?
No, it's worse than potatoes. So, those of us who were invited from Cleveland, we flew from Cleveland. I don't know, was it Chicago or Milwaukee, one of the two.
Figure it out, yeah.
But during that time, that was still part of my active addiction. So the night before, I had got all coked up. So I did a lot of cocaine and I was drinking. And I had to wake up in the morning. You know, first of all, you're all coked up, so you're not sleeping most of the night anyhow. And then I had to get on this morning flight, and I was with our friends Scott and Sue. We flew together. I don't know who else flew.
Wait, let me just ask you, you flew with Coke or you got it when you got there? How did you?
No, the night before I left Cleveland for the wedding, I partied. So I did a lot of cocaine and I drank. Now I did do a little bit of cocaine in the morning before I went to the airport to try to wake me up or whatever. But then, you know, the shit wears off quick. We're at the airport. We're in this puddle jumper plane. It's a small plane flying to Chicago or Milwaukee, wherever. I was fucking miserable.
Freaking out. I bet you were just completely. Oh my God.
It was absolutely terrible. And then I forget what happened when we got there and you got to check into the hotel and the whole thing. That whole day and night was completely miserable, forgettable. Luckily, I didn't bring any Coke with me for the rest of the weekend.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, this was before 9/11, right? Or was it after 9/11? It had to have been after 9/11. So I'm assuming they always had those dog sniffing dogs. You know what I mean? The drug sniffing dogs, dog sniffing drugs. No.
Right.
Drug sniffing dogs, right? Could you
sniffing dogs?
Yes. As usual. How would you have you ever brought it with you? Or any other drugs on the plane?
Yes, actually, I have.
You came to visit us in LA, in California?
No, I didn't do that then. Okay. But in 2003, I was dating a woman and we went to Las Vegas. And she's actually the person in my life who introduced me to illegal substances. She was the first person I did cocaine with. So
was this the one I met in Cleveland? Or no, this was someone else?
No,
you bring her around.
You met somebody else who I did cocaine with.
Great.
Of course.
We met one of them.
Right. So we're going out to Vegas for a few nights, and we had done the drug ecstasy a number of times in Cleveland. And we knew out in Vegas that they had these, you know, late night clubs that play the electronic music, and we wanted to do ecstasy out there. So we put the ecstasy in a plastic little baggie. She shoved it up her coochie. And luckily, we did make it through. We got through security. We got on the plane. I don't know why the dogs, if they were there, because it was after 9/11.
Well, she was up her thing. Why they probably couldn't have sniffed it out with all the plastic bags.
I'm guessing maybe it didn't smell too good down there, and they couldn't sniff it out.
I can't imagine how uncomfortable that flight could have been for her. That's a long ass flight. That's like 5.5 hour flight.
Right. It had to be miserable for her. Yeah, 4 or 5 hours.
She didn't say a word like, this plastic bag is really rubbing on the insides of my vagina.
I don't know. I can't remember if she maybe went to the restroom on the plane and took it out. I don't know. But I do know that same story, that morning before our flight, we started doing coke. So then we got to the airport. So we were going to come down off the coke, which was no good. So we started drinking, and we were drinking on the plane. And it's just, it's something.
I can't. You know what's so weird about that time is I look back at, as you know, we were hanging out because a lot of times we met you and some other person in Vegas. I can't remember who it was, and we would come to Cleveland or whatever. And I do remember, and tell me if I'm wrong, I do remember you running off to the bathroom a lot. And I remember asking my Scott, like, oh, maybe he's got like a UTI or something, you know, maybe he's got a bladder infection, which technically I don't think men get those, but I'm like, God, he goes pee a lot. You're like, I'll be right back. I got to go pee. You weren't going to pee, right? You were going to the bathroom to do whatever.
Right. And
And
I
then
remember one of the specific times you're talking about. You guys were in Cleveland. We all went to a restaurant, which is only 5 minutes from where I live. I think it's called Mitchell Seafood. We had a long rectangular table, and all our friends, the couples were there, and
yeah,
Mike and his wife and Scott and whatever. And I was there with the woman you met, Bridget.
Bridget, yes.
So, and during that meal, yes, we were doing Coke. So I'm sure each of us kept getting up and going to the bathroom. Now, the worst part of that story, if I remember this right, and I'm pretty sure, my sister and her husband were there with another couple
Oh, at the same time.
at the same time in a different part of the restaurant. And I think I remember going up and saying hi to them. Now, whether they paid attention, how many times I walked by their table to go to the bathroom, but you picked up on that. That's pretty good.
I'm very observant, and I think that's my problem is because I can't sit still. I'm always aware of everything. I think that's why I can't sleep at night. My brain doesn't stop working. And I think as a mother, you have to be like that when your kids are young. You're always aware of your surroundings. You're always aware of what's going on. Make sure they don't drown. Make sure they don't drink bleach. Make sure they don't grab something, stick their hand in the fire, whatever. But I think I've always been that way. I'm super observant. In fact, when we're out to dinner, a lot of times, or just out in public, I can tell when a couple is on a first date. I can tell when they're fighting. I can tell what's happening. And I can read lips. I don't know why. It's a
Really?
stupid thing, but I can also tell just from body language. So I do remember a lot of that. I do remember whatever you had this fetish with lollipops, you were always sucking on a lollipop and passing them out to random people. Do you remember that?
Now, see that I don't remember.
You don't remember that? Okay, we were in Vegas, and I swear, like every 20 minutes, a lollipop would appear, a sucker, whatever you call them.
Right.
And you were always giving it to other people too. Don't know why. And now that I think about it, maybe that was kind of something to do in between of taking a drug, doing a drug, whatever you call it, you know what I mean? Getting high. Maybe it was like some kind of distraction, like smoking, gum chewing. I don't know. But I do remember that. And then, you know how some people, when they're high or drunk, they could be mean drunks, they could be happy drunks, they could be sappy. I know when I drink even a little bit, which it doesn't take me much to be like really buzzed or drunk. I get very emotional. A lot of women do.
Right.
And I get happy, then emotional, then happy, then emotional. It's like a roller coaster. But you were mean.
I was mean?
You were mean. Like you were funny. You were funny as hell. Like really, really funny. Like all this shit would just fly out of your mouth. But you could tell when you were like up, and you could tell when you were down, because you would get really mean. You were constantly telling me that I have the most annoying voice, which I know I do. And
Really?
it's loud and screechy. Oh, you were like,
That's not nice of me.
no, I remember. But then you would completely switch, and you would be like the nicest, funniest guy in the world. And I felt like I was the only one that was picking up that something is off. Either, he's bipolar, he's got issues, or he's doing drugs, or he's doing something, and everyone's like, oh, he's fine, leave him alone, everything is fine. I'm like, no, something just doesn't seem right with this guy. He just went off on me about how annoying my voice is, and like, just shut up already. And then he's like, oh, I love you guys,
Right.
So
when we went to Vegas, I remember that trip, and we had a great time. I didn't do any drugs out there. I mean, I definitely drank. I was still drinking. And I always thought, when I drank, I always thought, like you said, I was a nice, more outgoing, funny guy. Because normally I'm more introverted,
Right.
but
Why?
get a few drinks in me. But I never thought, I mean, I do remember now that you bring it up, I used to make fun of your voice and stuff. I probably was drunk and thought I was being funny.
I mean,
Maybe
it was funny. It was really funny. Whatever the jokes you were making, they were hysterical. And we were always
maybe
laughing.
took it a little too far. And then, when you're a drinker like I was, I probably drank all night through dinner and then after and whatever. The problem is you wake up in the morning with a hangover, and maybe then I'm not such a nice guy till I get another couple drinks in me.
But I do remember, and tell me if you remember this. I do remember seeing a lot of pills, a lot of bottles. Um, you were staying at our house. You came to visit, and I remember I walked by your room. I don't know if I went to get a kid or get something, and your suitcase was open. And I just remember seeing all these prescription bottles of pills in the, like, a lot. And I remember telling Scott, I'm like, oh man, I hope he's okay. There's definitely a lot of prescription pills there, What is it for? He's like, really? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm like, it just to me. And he was like, yeah, whatever. Most people don't really pay attention to things like that. But I was like, something is not right there. There's a lot of bottles there.
Well, that is true. And those prescriptions, I don't remember specifically what they were, obviously, when I came to visit you. But, I'm still to this day on a number of medications for basically mental health.
Right.
I know for sure I didn't bring any illegal substances to your house so I could get high, like, painkillers, Percocets, whatever. So whatever you saw in the suitcase were legitimate prescriptions, whatever I was on at the time. And it's crazy because however many years later, if you came over and opened my medicine cabinet, you would see probably the same number of bottles. Now, I am working really hard with my psychiatrist to start weaning off some, lowering the amount I'm on. I'm always going to have to be on something, and we could certainly at some point in time get into why. But I just feel today I'm just on way too many different medications for mental health, and it's a lot of chemicals I take into my body every day. Some I have to take in the morning, and some I have to take at night, and this has been going on for years.
Right. And you have to be really careful if you're going to try to wean yourself off. And I remember you saying you tried, and some of those things, you may have to be on for the rest of your life. I mean, maybe some are unnecessary, but it's so dangerous. You got to be so careful trying to wean yourself off or not take certain ones. And obviously you can't just stop right away. And I'm sure your doctor will help with that. But I just know, well, my question to you, I guess, is how could you control that when you knew you were traveling, you going somewhere, and you didn't bring substances or things that you normally would have? How could you control that? Was it just you would turn to alcohol and you wouldn't need all those other pills or substance or Coke or whatever it is?
Yeah, because during the times that we're talking about, all these trips, the Vegas trip, going to visit you, Larry's wedding, I was not on my substance use. I wasn't on anything that was highly addictive. Okay. I might party and do coke all night long and drink and whatever. But even cocaine, I mean, I suppose if you used it daily for a long time, you could it's more psychological addiction than anything, than a physical addiction. But at those times, I hadn't started with opiates. I hadn't started with heroin, things that, are physically addicting, and you need them when you get up in the morning, you need them all day. Right. So yeah, like you said, I could put down the cocaine, let's say, for a number of days or a number of weeks. And, I could drink, and I'm sure there were some nights we went out and maybe I only had a couple, and some nights I might have had more than you guys had. But yeah, it wasn't until, and it's funny because when I started on addictive substances, which is about 2010, 11, I don't think I ever traveled. I don't think I had the money to travel because I was spending all my money on these drugs.
Right.
And I was having problems keeping jobs and the whole thing. I haven't been on an airplane in a long time. I used to travel all the time. I used to love that. But, when I was in the height of my active addiction, I never left. I never traveled. So, I didn't have to really worry about that.
Yeah. Do you think, and this might be, as you're talking, I was just thinking about this. This might be a very ignorant statement, but do you think mental health issues and addiction kind of go hand in hand, or it's one before the other or one after the other?
I'm a huge believer that they go hand in hand.
Really?
And they call it dual diagnosis for people who have mental health issues and alcoholism or addiction issues. So someone like me who battles them both, like when I would go to treatment to try to get off the substances, I'd always be diagnosed as dual diagnosis. So on the mental health side, I've got depression diagnosis and anxiety diagnosis. And then on the other side, I'm an addict. Now, I truly believe that my addiction was 80 to 90% caused by my mental illness. I was self-medicated.
Wow.
I didn't like feeling depressed. I don't like feeling anxiety. So depending what I was feeling, I would find illegal substances to take those feelings away. And the majority of people that I have met who battle alcoholism or addiction, they've got some type of mental health issue or diagnosis. Some may not even know it, but trust me, they have it.
Right.
It's rare that you find somebody who just drinks or does drugs, but has zero mental health issues, zero mental health diagnosis. Because I guess the other side of the coin is, let's say I didn't have any depression or anxiety issues, but I started using substances. Well, depending on the substance, cocaine causes anxiety, heroin causes depression. So the substance use is going to lead to the mental health part. So it's a vicious cycle no matter what part of it you're in.
And it makes sense. I mean, it all makes sense completely. And it's kind of sad, but I told my kids that I feel like a lot of moms, parents become alcoholics or drug addicts after having children. I know this is a joke and it's really stupid to joke about this, but I don't think I drank as much as I did until after having children. And they laugh because, I've partaken in smoking of marijuana, whatever kids call it these days. And, in small amounts here and there, just kind of relax and put myself to sleep. But I've never had that, I guess, addictive personality, which I'm sure I have it with other things. I mean, we all have addictions and we all get addicted to some things. But I really truly feel like a lot of moms, and I know I've talked to so many moms about this before, that we truly did not use any kind of substances until we became parents, just as a way to cope with the stress and kind of relax at night, or just to forget about all the shit that we have on our plate. And it's not right, but I think my kids always say, "Oh, you just blaming us for for the things that you do or you've done." But I think it's true. I think a lot of parents do, and I've talked to so many moms, and I don't know, like with the women that you were dating while you were using whatever it was, do you think that was kind of true, or people that you were dating or meeting?
Well, I definitely, first of all, I definitely think that's a true statement. Now, look, I'm not a parent, so obviously I can't speak to what you guys go through, but I would just imagine you bring a child into this world, all of a sudden you're responsible for this other human being. When they're born, obviously they can't do anything for themselves.
Yeah.
So that's got to be just innately a lot of added anxiety and stress and pressure. Just has to be. And you know, there's a reason alcohol's out there and it sells so much and whatever, because it does relax you. Like you say, you have a rough day with the kids and they're young and there's a lot of stress. And at the end of the, when they're asleep, you have a few glasses of wine or whatever it is, something to help you unwind.
Yeah.
And that just makes a ton of sense to me. Now, as far as the girls I dated during my active addiction, from what I can remember, they were all mothers. But the problem is they were so caught up in their addiction that they were mothers from a distance. One of them, the one who went to Vegas with me, she raised the daughter by herself. And she always had the daughter with her. She never lost the daughter, even though she was drinking and using or whatever. So I give her credit. She did the best she could. But I hear so many stories, like when I go to AA or in treatment or whatever it is, about mothers who lost custody of their kids,
right,
because their drinking and using got so bad that, it wasn't safe for the children, and either child services stepped in, or if there was a husband or father around who wasn't an addict, he stepped in. So yeah, that certainly happens a lot.
mm-hmm.
And the shame of it is it's the children who get affected, and
right.
they have no choice or say in the matter. I mean, it's just,
Yeah. Well, and how did she get started? Do you think that's what it was? Just a stress of being a single mom and just having a glass of wine here and there, and then second and third and other things?
no, the way she specifically got started, since she was a single mom,
Mm-hmm.
and the baby daddy, as they call it today, wasn't around and wasn't helping out. He was in Germany. She danced to make money to raise her kids. She danced, she stripped.
Mm-hmm.
The only way, and I got to know her pretty well, the only way she could even get on stage to do that is she had to be completely drunk, then a little bit of coke to wake her up, whatever. She could not get on stage sober.
Wow.
So even though she was really dancing for the right reason, to make money to raise her daughter, it dragged her into the whole world of drinking and using, and it became really bad. But that was her only way that she saw to be able to raise her daughter. So
that's really sad. Yeah, that's the unfortunate reality of many single moms and many people. But yeah, so let's go back to let's finish up on a happy note.
okay.
I know we could talk about mental health and addiction forever, and we'll always talk about those things. But we were talking about weddings and stuff, and you mentioned something earlier about weddings today, and your niece, I guess, is getting married, right? Or she's engaged.
Yeah, so my niece got engaged about 3 weeks ago or something. And she had been dating this guy for a year or two, and it's a great thing. I mean, everybody's happy. The two families actually know each other because they're both from Beechwood,
Mm-hmm.
The suburb that I grew up in, and your
Right.
husband, obviously, whatever. So yeah, so they got engaged. So I was at my sister's house on Father's Day, and the wedding is until next May.
Mm-hmm.
But my sister and brother-in-law were telling me about the wedding plans. And first of all, I have not been to a wedding in years.
Right.
Because
Same.
nobody would invite me. Nobody wanted me around when I was out there using and drinking. And so there were weddings that people I would normally have been invited to that I weren't. So I haven't been to a wedding in years. But what they're talking about is, okay, Friday night, instead of a rehearsal dinner, it's a welcoming party where everybody's invited. So not only, it used to be, I think, rehearsal dinner was usually for the out of town guests
Right.
and the wedding party, right?
Right.
I mean, that's when we got married. That's what.
Right.
So this is what's called a welcome party where everybody, whoever's invited to the wedding is invited to this.
And who's paying for this? The family, the bride's family, or the?
Yeah, so my nieces, my sister and brother-in-law are paying for this whole thing, which my brother-in-law was bitching and moaning during Father's Day how expensive this is going to be.
What, on top of the wedding, they have to pay for this?
Yeah, so they have to pay for this on Friday night.
What?
As far as I understand, they're paying for it. So then Saturday, there's a ceremony, obviously. There is then a reception, which is going to have not one, but 2 DJs.
What? Why?
That's what I couldn't figure it out. So one DJ sets it all up, the lights, the sounds, the speakers, whatever, and he's hosting the evening. The other DJ, the second DJ, is the one who's playing the music. Okay.
So then the first guy's not a DJ. He's just the MC or whatever.
Right. But he also is a DJ professionally.
Oh, God.
So I don't quite get it.
Complicated.
Yeah. So that's already 2 DJs, right?
Yeah.
So at some point in the evening, and we'll call it 11 o'clock, the reception's over, and now they're having an after party.
Oh my God.
Now, the only time I've ever heard of after parties is like for prom.
Right.
Like kids go to prom and then they might have an after party, right? That's the only time I've ever heard of it. I've never been to an after party at a wedding. I've never heard of it before until now. So the after party, they're serving more food and more dessert. So he's got to pay for a whole nother meal.
Wow.
For everybody who's invited.
Mm-hmm.
And they've hired a third different DJ to play the after party. So he's paying 3 DJs that night. And these aren't cheap DJs, trust me. These are DJs who play shows around here and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
wow.
this after party, I guess, goes to like 2, 3 in the morning, which I don't get because, at weddings, there's all different generations. My parents are going to be there, obviously.
There's no way I'm at 45 making it to 3 in the morning.
I'm not.
I can't imagine 80-year-olds making it till midnight.
Right, exactly. Usually people leave while the reception's still going on, right?
Right. By midnight, the latest. I think of my wedding, we had the ballroom, the reception room, the whatever the hell it was called. I think it was like midnight. That's it. That's when they cut you off. You want it longer, you pay per hour, and it's like some hefty sum because nobody wants to stay that long. I don't think anybody stayed. That's crazy.
No. So I can't imagine, like you said. I mean, I'm not staying at 56. I'm not staying. My parents aren't staying in their 70s.
Right.
I imagine this is more for my niece and her fiance and their friends.
Right.
The 20 and 30 crowd can stay up.
But then they should pay for this stuff. They should have their own party for their friends and shouldn't be the parents' responsibility. I can't imagine how much all of this would cost.
This is going to be a fairly big wedding, and
wow.
they're having it at a hotel resort in Pennsylvania, so it's not even here in Cleveland.
Wow.
So we all have to go to Pennsylvania and stay Friday night and Saturday night and the whole thing. And, and so you have the after party till 2, 3 in the morning, and then they're having a brunch Sunday morning, which it's just, weddings, I don't know if this goes on in California. This is the first I've heard of it, but they have completely changed since
it
I was in the wedding scene.
It sounds like it. Yeah. I'm hearing a lot about destination weddings where it's your closest friends and maybe your parents and closest relatives, smaller weddings, but they're actually flying to some exotic location. So there's a lot of that happening, especially with my clients, with my single clients that end up getting engaged and things like that. I think out here, people are not having these big humongous weddings that cost, $100,000 and up. I think people are saving their money and they're just traveling to some exotic place and getting married on the beach with a few friends. And
Right.
that's it. So, which,
It's funny. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that if I could do it again, I mean, I'm never getting married again. As a matchmaker, I shouldn't be saying that, but I really think marriage, commitment, living together really ruins your relationship. I've been saying it forever, and I know as matchmakers, we're not supposed to say that, but I think, where was I going with this? Yeah, that I would, instead of having a big wedding like I did, which was, we had probably, I don't know, over 100 people, 120 people or something. I know we invited close to like 150 people, but a lot of, Scott's friends, family from Cleveland couldn't make it in other parts of the country. But I would have saved that money in a heartbeat. If I could do it again, I would never, and my parents, of course, paid for it. I would never do that again. And I encourage people, and even my own kids, save that money for a down payment on a house.
Right.
Well,
here's the perfect example why that's a waste of money. And it's my story. Were you at my wedding?
No, I didn't know you then.
Okay.
No.
I got married in 2000. No, I got married in 1995.
Yeah. See, I was graduating high school then. So.
Right. Yeah, we didn't 1995. You're right. We didn't know each other.
I was a senior in high school, graduating.
So I got married in 1995. We had approximately 200 people with, first class, a big band, the whole thing. My wife or fiance at the time, her parents didn't have much money. So my parents paid for the whole thing.
Wow.
I don't know how much it cost, but like you said, it could have cost $100,000. I was married for a year and a half, and then divorced. It's like, give me the
pay your parents back. I hope you paid.
Yeah, I wish I could. It's like you said, give me the $100,000. I won't get married, and I'll buy a house or something, or I'll take a trip around the world. It's just
right,
crazy because you don't know if the thing's gonna last or not. You hope
not only that, but even if it does last, I still think it's such a waste of money. You're really putting on a party for other people. It's right. Not for you. I didn't have fun at my wedding. I don't even remember it, honestly. I hardly remember the wedding night, the next day, the day before, the rehearsal dinner. I don't remember shit because I was so stressed out and I was trying to finish school. And I think I had just had finals not long before the wedding. It was awful. I don't remember any of it. So yeah, it's going to be 23 years in August. Great. But I think it was probably like, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 for my parents. Yeah, I should have had them give me that cash and save that money, put it into stocks, real estate.
Exactly. Bitcoin, whatever.
Right. Oh, can you imagine?
My brother-in-law's brother has a daughter who's getting married, okay? They were scheduled to get married last year and do a destination wedding like you were talking about in Cabo. So it's going to be small. Her parents, obviously, my sister and brother-in-law, I mean, it's going to be small, and everyone was going to Cabo. Well, that got canceled because of COVID. So now she's getting married at the end of July here in Cleveland, and it's costing her parents a hell of a lot more money now because they've got to they're doing the same thing. The welcome party Friday night, the reception and after party Saturday night.
Crazy.
For a lot more people, obviously, because it's in town.
Right.
And they're not wealthy people. They don't have a lot of money. It's crazy.
It's terrible to put people through that. And this is what I think I talked about that in my book. If not my book, I know in my blog, I talked about it many times. The fact that in America, it's such a tradition for the bride's family to pay for the wedding. And then the man's family, the groom's family pays for rehearsal dinner or whatever, which is nothing compared to the entire wedding.
Right.
And I think it's such a stupid tradition. In Europe in general, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, wherever, all over the world, That's not a thing. Either you split it or the couple pays for it if they're old enough and they have careers and money, or you just go and elope when you go to, the, what is it called? Civic hall, civil hall, whatever.
Right, justice of the peace, whatever.
Exactly. And then when you have the money, throw a party.
Right.
So I never understood that. And I remember, and this is, it's really sad because my parents didn't know much of these traditions. So when we got engaged and started planning the wedding, they kind of assumed that, Scott's parents would pay for half of it. And then I remember Scott's parents saying something like, oh, yeah, we'll help. And then my parents called them because, Russians, we're very upfront. We say what we mean. And when you tell us we're going to help, we take it literally. You're going to help financially. So I remember my mom calling his parents saying, okay, great. So this is how much this is going to cost. This is how much that's going to cost. Which part of it do you want to pay for? And they were like, oh, no. We meant we will help emotionally. We will help with the planning. We will help with whatever. I mean, I think they did end up paying for the flowers or something, which was really nice of them. But then they had to explain to my parents that, in America, it's a tradition that the bride's family pays for. Here, my parents just came to this country less than 20 years before, and whatever little money they have saved, now they got to put for a wedding, and I remember telling them, look, I don't need a big wedding. We don't have to do this. We could just have a small little reception. And my dad would say, no, I want you to have the wedding. If this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, this is what you want. I'm going to give you a wedding. I remember feeling awful because my dress alone was like $1,000,
Right.
In 1998. I'm like, oh my God, this is outrageous. Like, no, you like it, we buy it. I get you the dress, you want the dress, we get the dress. I was like, Dad, this is $1,000. No problem. And it was just like, everything was the fucking flowers, $2,000. And I remember it was hysterical. This is probably, for another book, but everywhere we went, and if we did take my dad, he would try to like kind of bargain with them and go, what's the hell? What do I pay for? $2,000 for flowers?
Right.
What kind of flowers? The gold, you put them in gold, you wrap diamond around it, and they're like, no, we don't put it in gold. We don't wrap diamonds around it.
Flowers that are going to be dead in 2 days.
Yeah. And I had this brilliant idea. I wanted, I think they're called lily of the valley. It's like a little like bouquets. And they only grow in the Midwest and the East Coast in cold climates like fucking Cleveland. They don't grow in California, right? So I was like, I always wanted to walk down the aisle with lily of the valley, or beautiful whatever. And I remember the lady saying, okay, well, we'll probably have to import it from fucking Cleveland or from New York or some East Coast, whatever. And this is in August. So, or maybe Alaska. I don't know where they would find them because they grow under snow. The first snow, that's when they come, right? Well, we're getting married in August. And I remember she was saying, oh, just for this little bouquet, it was going to be like, I don't know, $500. My dad was like, what? I'm like, okay, scratch that. No lily of the valley. He's like, well, you had to get married in August. What the hell is this? So anyway, I feel terrible in all these years to try to pay them back. And of course, my dad's like, no, you don't pay me back, just give me more grandbabies. I'm like, yeah, this shop's closed, but.
Yeah, I agree with you. Wherever the tradition of the bride's family has to pay for the wedding, I don't.
Horrible. It's right. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, right.
Why?
Doesn't make sense. I don't know if that's like. Yeah, it doesn't make, because wasn't way back in history, didn't the man's family had to give a dowry?
Yes.
Right.
So, I mean, still I believe in India, a lot of Indian families, a lot of other cultures, it's either you split it or it's the groom's family that pays for the wedding. So I have a client actually who is dating, I have a few clients who are Indian, and they're planning this wedding in some palace in India. And it's the groom's family that's paying for all of this. Not only that, but they have to give the bride many, many gifts, clothing, handmade gowns, dresses, jewelry. I mean, and I'm like, yeah, I fucking married wrong. Like, I really married
Yeah, you married the wrong culture.
a Jew from Cleveland. I'm like, I could have had a fucking prince. And, then my kids are like, a prince? You're Jewish. Like, what prince is going to marry a Jew? Like, where are you going to find a prince? I'm like, don't they have princes in Israel? And no, does not exist. Funny. So I'm like, next time around, I'm marrying a prince.
A prince from India, and you can get married in a palace.
Exactly. Or
just make sure you invite me, please.
I definitely will. But anyway, so yeah, we can go off on many tangents. I think we've covered a lot of topics today.
We have.
And I think there's definitely a lot more to talk about it. So we should definitely thank our listeners if they stuck with us this long. Hopefully.
Yeah, this is a long one for them.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna break it up into a couple of episodes.
That's probably a good idea. I think we're going on an hour and a half. So. Oh
my gosh, you're right. And I gotta pee again, and I have to start dinner because my life revolves around the kitchen and when I'm cooking next. Even though I got rid of one kid, but apparently there's still two bodies that want me to cook.
Fed, huh?
They need to be fed. So. Anyway, well, thank you for joining me today again.
It was a pleasure, like always. I always have a good time when we do this.
Awesome. And let's do this again, and we'll talk more about the Jewish mobsters and mental health, weddings, everything else that we covered today, and more.
Female prostates, whatever else.
Forgot about that. Oh my God, the female prostate. We talked about that too. So yeah, I'm gonna go try to look for it again.
At least I learned something on this podcast. That's a good thing.
Right? Well, I always learn something. I'm gonna go try to find my prostate again. I'm gonna send an angry email to that doctor because I think she's full of it. I don't know. I can't find it.
Yeah, well, see, that's my point. If you can't find it, how the hell are we supposed to find it? That I don't get at all.
That's very true.
You women are way too complicated. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to interview other women. We're going to talk to other women. And if they find it, then we're going to create a chart, like a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation for all you men. Where to find it? Where to
find it 101. I need a class like that, please.
That's a good topic. Where to find it 101.
All right.
Thank you so much. And we'll be back for more fun, interesting, crazy.
You have been listening to Raw Truth Stories of Female Infidelity. Your support of the podcast is truly appreciated. Be sure to visit my website at rawtruthstoriesoffemaleinfidelity.com to access story guides, subscribe to Patreon for bonus episode of the men's side of female infidelity, and to vote for this podcast to be in the Hot 50 Countdown for Podcast Magazine. To submit your story for the show, share feedback, or if you have a Let's Ponder suggestion, please email it to rebecca.rawtruth@gmail.com or send by snail mail to Rebecca Adams, P.O. Box 821064, Vancouver, Washington 98682. Every story is always anonymous. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show. Raw Truth Stories of Female Infidelity is produced and edited by Rebecca Adams. You can follow the show on Facebook at Raw Truth Stories of Female Infidelity, on Instagram at Podcast Raw Truth, and on Twitter at Raw Female. Thank you again, and be kind to one another. Be kind to yourself, and always remember, no judgment. Goodbye.